Summerland, an area affected by the wildfires, through soliciting Red Cross donations, through prioritizing and promoting Summerland products. I want to thank them for that. We've got 1,300 families that are still under evacuation notice in the province right now. We're going into a dry, warm, windy set of weather ahead, and there are increasing risks again of wildfire. So just asking British Columbians to please be careful out there, especially in the backcountry, and report those fires as soon as you see them. The Wildfire Service has been doing excellent work in knocking them down, but they have to know about them. So BCL has been doing great work on that, but also the BC liquor stores and BC liquor policy has been one of our key responses to the Trump trade war on Canada and on British Columbia by choosing not to stock, not to order American booze. We tried in our own small way here in British Columbia to send a message that would be received and seen by the president, and it was. It is unfair, it is unjust that BC forest families, BC forest companies have worse access to the American market than the European Union, than Russia, for example. And so getting the president's attention through liquor policy was one of the key ways we did it. Obviously, we've seen another attack from the United States. And again, I'm asking British Columbians, if you have a choice, please don't travel to the United States. Choose another place to do your tourism. If you can choose a Canadian product instead of an American one, please choose it. Right now, Canadian workers from coast to coast to coast need our support. With 50% tariffs imposed by the president on many products, by being our own best customer, we can help respond and support Canadians in every corner of this amazing country we call home. Today, we heard some important news from the Prime Minister, two components. First of all, we've seen the initial proposal around counter-tariffs against the United States for the recent attack of the president on the Canadian economy, and also supports for workers. On the supports for workers, I'd like to say, first of all, that this is a good start. It is important to see and to hear leadership at the federal level say that they are in this for as long as it takes and to do whatever it takes to support Canadian workers. We know that British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec are disproportionately impacted as provinces that make stuff that is sold in the United States. And as a result, we're disproportionately impacted. Our workers are going to need that support. We also know that for the long term, the best thing that we can do to respond to these tariffs is to build up our workers, to build up our trade infrastructure, and be less dependent on the United States. So we'll be looking for that as well. In terms of the counter-tariffs, to me, reviewing what the Prime Minister has proposed, this is a proportionate response. It is identical to the tariffs that have been imposed on us by the President. It will have the effect of providing some protection for Canadian businesses and a response to the President's unjustified tariffs. There are components that I thought I might see that were not present in the announcement that are still available for the Prime Minister. First of all, when your friend kicks you in the back, one of the first rules is you don't then go and buy $12 billion of fighter jets from that person. Our partnership on key federal initiatives between countries should be part of this discussion. The second is out of Westport, we ship a huge amount of American thermal coal. The reason it goes out of Westport is because the Americans can't get it out of any of their own ports. They won't ship it themselves. It's something that the federal government is committed to phasing out already in 2030. It's been raised by a member opposite, John Rustad, from the formerly leader of the Conservative Party, as a potential target. I agree with him. I think that this is something that the federal government should be looking at as well. We haven't seen those measures yet, but I am encouraging the Prime Minister to look at non-tariff measures to respond as well to what the Americans are trying to do to Canadians. You know, when the going gets tough, British Columbians pull together. We saw the wildfires, we saw people taking in folks from Summerland, welcoming them into their community, providing support to them, offering food. That continues. We see all our wildfire fighters out there on the front line doing whatever it takes to knock down those fires, being real heroes in the face of danger and adversity. And that is not new in British Columbia. That is something that goes right back to the earliest days of this province. People pitching in, supporting each other, working together. And that's what's going to get us through this. If you're angry, I'm angry too. It's an unjustified attack on our families, and we have been nothing but good to the United States. It makes absolutely no sense. It is an extortionate attempt by the president to force Canada, through any means necessary, to bend to his whims and his will. We are a sovereign country. We've got to stand up for that. If we don't stand up for that, then what will we stand up for? So we'll stand up for Canada. BC will be a part of that, and we'll do our part. And I know there are also a lot of people who are anxious. Work in the forest sector, work in wood products, work in electronics. You have major customers in the United States. Really hard to replace that US market. Know that the federal government is committed to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes, and the BC government will be there as well to support you and your families through this incredibly challenging time. With that, I'd like to take any questions from the media that you may have.
Thank you. We'll start with questions here in the room. One question, one follow-up. We'll start with Lauren Collins from the Black Press.
Hi, thank you, Premier, for taking my question. What were some of the parts of the Prime Minister's announcement that you liked, and what were the parts that you weren't as open to today?
Well, it's very early stages for the announcement around supports for workers and companies. So our key question to the Prime Minister, my key question to the Prime Minister during the Premier's meeting was, can we support, are there ways we can support in ensuring that this is delivered in a way that is as frictionless as possible for small and medium-sized businesses? The Prime Minister was clear that he understood that these were the businesses that were really impacted by this round of tariffs. They're going to need additional support, and they don't need a huge number of complicated processes to go through to be able to access that support. It's quite urgent and it's quite immediate. And so that's the first piece we'll be looking to with the federal government is around implementation. It is a good start, but how it rolls out to these small and medium-sized businesses that are already working full out is going to be absolutely crucial. On the second piece of the Prime Minister's announcement, I was pleased to see the dollar-for-dollar tariff response because it will provide some level of protection for BC businesses and encourage Canadians to be our own best customers on these kinds of things. And there are other pieces that I didn't hear that are not tariff responses that, in my opinion, should be on the table. We should be having a public discussion. Should we be buying those fighter jets from the United States? In my opinion, the answer is absolutely not. Should we be shipping thermal coal from the United States out through our port without considering whether or not we should have additional export tariffs or taxes on those? I think that's something we should be looking at. And so I'll put those ideas forward to the Prime Minister, but what won't change is that we are committed to working in lockstep with the federal government as part of a national strategy to be able to respond to this unjustified attack on our country and on our province.
On an unrelated note, a second Conservative MLA left the party this week. Do you have any thoughts or comments on that?
Well, you know, it's been a fairly regular occurrence, people leaving the BC Conservative Party. And you know, I can understand why people don't want to be a part of it. I can understand why British Columbians wouldn't want to vote for it. It's an extremist right-wing party, and now we'll have another right-wing party, it seems, which will make now 3 political parties, where previously there was 1. And I mean, those are their priorities in terms of trying to organize themselves and figuring out what they would like to do. Our priorities are very clear. We're responding to this attack from the president. We're strengthening our economy here in British Columbia. We're developing relationships overseas. We are making sure that our trade infrastructure is built up through an unprecedented agreement with the federal government worth more than $20 billion to British Columbians. That is the work that we're doing, and we're going to continue to do that.
We're going to go to Nono Shen from the Canadian Press.
Hi, Premier. The New York Times has run a story, and it's quoting Jamison Geer, the U.S. Trade Representative. And the story say that there is a pledge to reduce U.S. tariff on softwood lumber had been offered by the U.S. I wonder, do you regret that Canada walked away from such an offer? Thank you.
Well, for my part, I would be careful about any assertions made by American officials about what happened at the trade talks. I will say this, from what I understood from the Canadian side, is that there was progress being made on the softwood file. And it is disappointing, obviously, that wasn't made real in terms of a new agreement. But let's not be naive about this. Any agreement that would have been signed with this president wouldn't have lasted as long as it took him to write his signature. This is a president that would have signed the deal and then turned around and called it the worst deal and how could Canada take advantage of him, and then ripped up that deal. The only way to deal with a thug and a bully is to stand up to him. That's why the Prime Minister's step was the right one. And I'm proud of the Prime Minister for doing that. I'm proud of Canada for backing the Prime Minister for that. And I hope that other countries like Mexico that are deep in talks with the US right now join us and say enough is enough, because that is really the only way we can respond.
Thank you, Premier. And and I have another follow-up. You have opened your speech by encouraging Canadians not to travel to the United States. And is it okay to ask how long you haven't been to the United States for non-business travel?
Yeah, sure. The last time I was in the United States was for the mission to Washington, D.C. to meet with senior members of the U.S. administration. My family, and to my regret, and because I have relatives in the U.S., and to my kids' regret, because we did have plans to go to Disneyland, we haven't been to the United States since the trade war began.
And we'll go to Stefan LeBay from Business in Vancouver.
Hi, Premier. Thank you for taking my question.
Yeah, you bet.
Sorry, I'll just move this mic up. 2 months ago, technical experts from the oil and gas industry approached your government identifying an error in your 2026 budget. The error, as they communicated, led to what they calculated as a $500 million overestimation in gas royalties on an annual basis going forward for 5 years. That's about $2.5 billion overestimated in your budget, according to them. Will you acknowledge that mistake?
I'm not familiar with any error in our budget related to oil and gas revenues. I know that we have been in negotiations with key producers around an increase to the royalty rate. There was a review that we've been doing and implementing a new rate. I'll ask the Minister of Energy to get back to you and the Ministry of Finance to clarify any issues you identified.
Just a follow-up. You say that you're not aware, but on July 14th, you were handed this letter by 4 chiefs of 4 nations in the oil and gas area, producing areas of this province, and it identifies the budget error. It also notes that your new royalty regime that you are working on right now would only bring 11 to 14% royalty returns. That's far short of the 50% your government has committed to. They also identified a number of other technical errors that would be regressive, worse than a previous error that your government scrapped internally in 2024. So I'd like for you to respond to these claims and help British Columbians understand how your government's trying to get a fair return on oil and gas going forward.
Yeah, we've been involved in discussions with Treaty 8 First Nations and development of the royalty regime. There's been a vigorous back and forth. There was definitely a different perspective and views at certain points. But I'll say this, British Columbians are getting a significant return from oil and gas revenues. For example, LNG Canada Phase 2 is projected to be worth $28 billion to the BC economy over the lifetime of the project. There is always room for discussion about how best to arrange royalties to remain competitive in a global environment and maximize return to taxpayers. That's our goal. It will continue to be our goal. And on the details of any alleged error in the budget, I'll ask the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Energy to get back to you.
We will now go to questions online. Ben O'Hara-Byrne from Globe and Mail, or Global News.
Oh, that's all you promoted me. I'm just kidding. Thank you so much. Hey, Premier, thanks for taking my question. First and foremost, Carolyn Finley today was asking, and this is something that the opposition in Ottawa has asked for as well, to reconvene the legislature, to talk about some of these issues, to hammer them out in public. How do you respond to that request?
We're bringing the legislature back together in just a few weeks. We'll be all together in October. I look forward to that, and I understand Ms. Finley intends to run, and so perhaps she'll join us, and perhaps not.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I do. Thanks again. BC's Privacy Commissioner today announced an investigation into your removal of the public directory and looking into claims that it was a security risk, basically saying that without an alternative, a replacement, that this was a very serious transparency issue. It's been explained to us why it was done, but what's your response to the Privacy Commissioner looking into this? Clearly, there are big concerns about the process, about the way it was carried out.
Yeah, well, I share the concerns. It was not an ideal process. The RCMP approached us, identified the serious risk that the information, which is the contact information for literally every government worker across the province, presented in an era of AI and spoofing and phishing operations trying to access government information database systems. It was a serious concern that was brought to us. The Ministry of Citizen Services was in the process of determining how best to address that, what to replace the system with, when unfortunately the risk became public. We had to decide whether to leave the database up with all the information that the RCMP had told us was a serious risk, or whether to take it down and have a gap. There was no good option here, but the decision was made to take the information down and to replace it as quickly as possible with a system that allows people to be in touch with government. We want people to be in touch with government. We need them to be in touch with government. This is not something that we wanted to do or set out to do. We'll work with the Privacy Commissioner to ensure that whatever we put in place to replace the pre-existing system achieves our twin goals of minimizing the risk of hacks into government and all the sensitive information that government has, and access for the public to be able to bring forward information, raise concerns, and reach out to different government departments directly. We want people to be able to do that.
And now we'll go to Rob Buffum from CTV.
Oh, hi, Premier. Thanks for taking my question. My first question relates to the fracturing that we're seeing in the right. You talked about three parties now representing center-right interests. Can you rule out, given the sort of chaos or the ruptures that are happening there, can you rule out that you won't call an early election?
Center right, Rob, my gosh. Okay, well, I mean, these are parties that are having discussions about how quickly they want to repeal the Human Rights Code, which protects people's equal access to public services, regardless of the color of their skin or their religion. So these are not center right parties. These are extremist right parties, the likes of which we haven't seen in British Columbia for a generation. I'll just make that point first. The second is we're headed into legislative session. The right continues to fracture. Really, British Columbians are focused on a government that's working for them. We're committed to work for them. We are not looking to an early election. We're looking to delivering for British Columbians in the middle of an unprecedented trade war from our closest friend and ally, the United States, that is attacking BC families, and they need our support.
And do you have a follow-up, Rob?
I do. I'm curious as to when you intend to call the by-election for Carolyn Finley to run in Abbotsford Mission. And also just wanted to get your thoughts on allegations about Ian Payton being offered a role as an advisor with the same salary as he was making as an MLA if he would vacate his seat. The propriety of that, if that's a problem or not.
Yeah, Rob, it's just a mess after a mess on the Conservative side of things. It's chaos central over there. I can't explain what's happening there. I don't know, but I do see that it's a mess. In terms of specific decisions made by the new leader, she is the one who should be accountable for them, and she just held her first press conference and her first full press conference in like more than 80 days as leader. So we'll see. We'll give British Columbians the choice of direction where they would like to go in terms of the province, pulling people apart, avoiding the media chaos, and more expensive homes, and sucking up to Donald Trump, versus building a strong, independent economy as part of a national effort to respond to an unprecedented trade war. The choice is pretty clear to me, and I hope it is for British Columbians as well.
And we'll go with the last question to Mike Hager from the Globe and Mail.
Thank you. Just with regards to Westport, have you talked to Jimmy Pattison, who owns near half the shares of the terminal that's exporting all this thermal coal? Or do you plan to, in order to lobby Ottawa to include this as a retaliatory move in the trade war?
No, I haven't spoken to Mr. Patterson about this, but if there was any interest from Ottawa in taking this up, certainly I would, of course.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Always think. Okay, so you're not going to actively ask him to help you lobby. The other part is you spoke about the First Minister's meeting on Saturday, identifying levers that Canada and the provinces could pull. What this puts back on the F-35 brought up to Prime Minister Carney by you or other premiers, and what other targets, for lack of a better word, were strongly pushed by the First Minister?
I asked our government across ministries to look and identify anything within our provincial jurisdiction, or that they identified that might be federal jurisdiction, that we could use to respond to this unprecedented attack on Canada by the President. The work is underway. We expect to provide suggestions, opportunities to the federal government in this regard, the formal process for that is that the federal government has come to us with a list of proposed tariffs. We're going to provide feedback on that, and we're also going to provide additional suggestions. At this point, Mike, the ones that I feel comfortable talking about are both exclusively in federal jurisdiction, but obviously have impacts on British Columbia. The coal trains from the U.S. that go out through Westport, and in addition, the plan to spend $12 billion on a country that just kicked us in the back.
This concludes today's press conference. Thank you all very much.
Thanks very much.